How ironic that in the week Britain hosted the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, news hits that the children of the Windrush generation from the Caribbean, whose parents were invited here as Commonwealth citizens with the right to live and work, are being denied settled status. In the middle of what's supposed to be a celebration of our renewed, more equal relationship with the Commonwealth, this utter disgrace hardly sends a message of confidence about the trustworthiness of British leaders and the promises they make. Calls for an amnesty for those affected miss the point. These people are not here illegally. There should be no need for costly legal fees or requests to produce old documents. The government simply needs to honour the original agreement, apologise and offer assistance to anyone affected, being denied healthcare or the right to work, or been wrongly deported. Failure to do so will diminish our links with the Commonwealth. It's time to show a bit more respect to our elders and stop playing games with Commonwealth citizens as well as British citizens.
It occurs to me, perhaps anyone who's living on a different planet, if you're not aware, you mentioned briefly the Windrush, just to explain, these are people, as you said,
yes,
who came to the UK from the Caribbean starting in 1948.
They were
the Windrush,
invited over.
Yes, indeed. The Windrush was from the name of the ship, the Empire Windrush. It brought initially workers from Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago. They answered a call from the government for struggling industries such as agriculture and mining under the 1971 Immigration Act. All were given indefinite leave to remain. So important to your conversation. There's around 500,000 people this affects from the Commonwealth countries. Many have been wrongly identified as illegal immigrants because they don't have the official paperwork. Yeah. Now to the meat of the story. I've always been proud to be British, even though I'm half British, because of my late dad. This is an absolute scourge on Britain. I cannot for the life of me work out how I'm living in a country where we have been unable to deport Egyptian-born hate preachers, Algerian-born terrorists and Romanian killers. We are unable to get them out of the country, and yet in some instances we look at people who came here, who have worked for 50 years, who have invited here, who have paid their taxes. We've denied them cancer care. We've put them in immigration centres.
Many have lost their jobs.
Possibly one lost their life because of the emotional pressure. That's not verified, but possibly. Certainly they've suffered emotional strain, and it is a situation that besmirches every single political party because it was an idea or part of it that seemed to initiate under Labour. It was carried under the coalition. Nobody emerges with any credit. It is an absolute bloody disgrace.
Disgrace. Disgrace. And I think the thing that upsets me most, you know, I'm one of those people, and, you know, Afua and I often debate on this issue, and a lot of the time I actually disagree with her sort of stance where race is concerned. And I never use that R word willy-nilly. But I think in this case, if we want to know what institutional racism looks like, it's this. Because it's funny how there are 9 million people in the UK who don't have a passport. And it's funny how when it comes to this issue, we are looking at people of colour. And actually, when you look at immigration in general, particularly Commonwealth immigration, people from countries like Australia, you know, majority white countries, can have ancestry visas. That's not available to people from the Caribbean countries, and because of slavery, the majority of those people have white British ancestors. And
before I yield, I spoke to Trevor Phillips on my radio show, who I think we'll all agree is a force for good in matters such as these, and he said that unfortunately these people just do not have a voice. If it was different ethnic groups or different religious groups, they have more, and it's horrible to say, so they were effectively written off. This is, and as I say, this is absolutely shaming.
Before I bring the rest of everybody else in, can I show David Lammy's speech in the Commons this week?
How many have been denied health under the National Health Service? How many have denied pensions? How many have lost their job? This is a day of national shame, and it has come about because of a hostile environment policy that was begun under her Prime Minister. Let us call it as it is. If you lay down with dogs, you get fleas, and that is what has happened with this far-right rhetoric in this country.
Rachel, do you want to add to this?
I agree, and I think, as you say, the timing could not be worse. Just when we are, as a country, trying to show an outward face to the world as global Britain, it looks like we've turned in on ourselves.
Even more so.
I mean, we also need to talk about the fact that the Home Office has managed to destroy all these landing cards of the legal immigrants who are invited in. And I think we need to look now beyond this crisis and the 3.7 million EU citizens who must be looking at this shambles in absolute abject despair.
Yes. Yeah.
I know somebody who's been sent an 80-page document to prove that he's been living here for the last 15 years.
This is because of post-Brexit, just to explain.
Yeah, this is
they're worried about their status.
How are they going to be able to continue to live in this country if people who are invited in, the government has actually destroyed the evidence of their immigration?
Well, a previous government.
A previous government, of course. Yeah. It's just shocking, but let's put a human face on it, because we've heard a lot of numbers, and actually David Lammy was calling for numbers. Let's hear from Michael Braithwaite, who's 66, who came into this country in 1961.
I feel that I am British, and you can't take that away from me. You know, this is my roots. This is where I belong. You know, and I had that dark feeling of not being part of. And I think that was after being part of a school and part of the team and part of everyone, and to have that taken away from you in a snap of a finger, it was a dark place. My whole world was turned upside down.
So Michael Braithwaite's been termed now an illegal immigrant. We should say that Prime Minister Theresa May has spent a lot of the last 2 or 3 days apologising for this.
Has she done enough?
But, I mean, in my view, I mean, people have recalled the fact that when she was Home Secretary in the Go Home office, it was basically, you know, she said we have to make this country an illegal, an alien environment, a hostile environment for illegal immigration, because illegal immigration is unpopular, let's not forget it, but also the problem here is these were legal.
Yes. And just, of course, Michael Braithwaite has now quite rightly been cleared. And just underscore your point before we bring the other. Why does the Prime Minister just slam a desk and say they're all staying?
That's it. That's all she needs to do.
And one other aspect before we bring Michelle in. You haven't mentioned, which I think is shameful, the cost of this, right? Now, it's been calculated that it costs about £400 for the admin to show that you can stay in this country. Do you know how much you're charged? £1,200. Now, to some of these folk who have been driving buses or working in the fields or working in the NHS, £1,200. Why are we making 800 quid out of each case?
Shocking.
I think we should look at what Theresa May has said about this as well.
I want to dispel any impression that my government is in some sense clamping down on Commonwealth citizens, particularly those in the Caribbean who built a life here. I take this issue very seriously. The Home Secretary apologised to the House of Commons yesterday for any anxiety caused, and I want to apologise to you today.
But that's still not enough as far as I'm concerned.
That's too little too late again, isn't it?
Yeah, it
There's
is.
a massive common sense issue with this whole thing for me, do you know what I mean? It just reeks from top to bottom. You know, the paperwork going missing, the fact it was even brought up in the first place. You know, these people are as British as anybody sat around this table, do you know what I mean? So there's absolutely no way this should even be in the forefront, you know what I mean? Let alone labelling people with this, that and the other. It just shouldn't be an issue, full stop for me, which is, you know, it's a shame.
Totally.
But this, for me, I mean, my heart breaks for everyone. I can't imagine someone knocking on my door or turning up at my door in the middle of the night or where I work and going, right, you prove your residency or else. I'd be like, oh, I can only just about find my mobile phone sometimes, never mind paperwork dating back years and years and years.
And you need 4 pieces of identification for each year you've been here.
But they've softened that, haven't they now? So for me, this whole thing is just sheer incompetence, because if you look at why this is happening, it's an unintended consequence, isn't it, of some immigration, a new immigration policy, and this is why this is now coming to light. And I think, how can you have a situation...
Do you agree, though, with a tougher immigration policy?
I do agree with a tougher immigration policy.
But that's for illegal immigrants, not for this.
I agree with the policy that was introduced. I think this is an absolutely
And did you agree with the vans
unintended...
driving around saying, if you're illegally, get out? I paraphrase it.
Or you risk arrest.
Or you risk arrest. Did you agree with the vans?
Well, I thought that they were a little bit odd, to say the least.
But did you agree with them?
Disgusting.
No, but I do think that what they try...
I
don't have a drama with that at all. I don't have a drama with vans whatsoever.
By the way, they were banned.
I don't have a drama with that.
They were actually...
Seriously, no. You're breaking the law, you're going to be caught and you're going to be hoofed out of
Don't
it.
you think
Simple
that
as.
just
But
sends
that's a different
the
issue.
wrong message about who we are as a country?
No, not at all. You know, it does. A wrong message about what we're doing as a country, do you know what I mean? In you come, do you know what I mean? No. We've decided to draw a line in the sand and we're going to police that line. Is there anything wrong in that? You decide who comes in and out your house, didn't you? Do you know what I mean? That's all this is saying, do you know?
But hang on, that helped create this hostile... Do you not accept that helped create this hostile environment?
I can see that she was taken the wrong way, but then, you know, how many times do you have to go down the line before you can get your point across as well, you know?
But this whole thing, like, so I just feel so sorry for the people. I've listened to lots of people on the radio, I've read lots of stories, and I think it is so awful to literally be, when they've been put in detention centres and all the rest. It's
Some of them actually
horrible.
deported.
But I just think, well, where is your brain?
There's been at least 3 in Jamaica.
I just think, where is your brain to actually not keep the required paperwork? As a government, I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the people, but as a government, why haven't you got like central records? Like, if you say, look, is this person
well,
in this
they
country,
did
you've got
have the
tax records, you've got
paperwork.
schools records, you've got work.
You know,
that's what I mean.
They
That's what
had
I'm talking
it.
about. It's ridiculous.
You know what, June? And I want to go around the table here. If this was a business, the chief executive would almost certainly be gone. I'd be surprised if he or she clung on for this level of shambles. Amber Rudd is still in post. I appreciate some of it happened not on her watch, but we knew about this in November. Newspapers were breaking stories.
To my sister-in-law, Amelia, gentleman of The Guardian. Congratulations on outstanding reporting.
Who obviously is in the running for journalist and campaign of the year. I would have thought,
Who
married
do you find
to.
Hold on, what were you saying?
If it was a chief exec, I would have thought he or she's probably facing the exit, is leaving the door. Is Amber Rudd fit for purpose? Does she stay? You, Rachel?
Absolutely. I mean, this was not her shambles.
It's been running since November. You've just said yourself.
Nick, to me, that's not the question. The question is not about whether or not we fire Amber Rudd.
Yeah, it's
the
like
question is
passing the
about
buck again,
yeah,
isn't it?
The
Let's
question
just look at the
is
system.
about it. We just need the government to come out and say anybody.
And nobody pays the price.
Unequitably. I don't
That's
think
it.
anybody
That's all
argues
they
with
need
that
to
point.
do.
That those
Can I
people,
ask?
those people that came over from Jamaica, Tobago, and all those people have a perfect right. They came here to help us out.
Totally.
They came here to get us out of an hole.
Something that's common to a lot of this. 9 million people without passports, 500,000 people who came over without proper paperwork, is not the real answer. I know it's not who we are as a country, but ID cards. I mean, honestly, this means that obviously the Home Office isn't fit for purpose when it comes to the paperwork. Therefore, in order to save people from going through this sort of nightmare, we need some actual, we need proper cards. We need a central database of people. Otherwise, it does not work.
I don't know. I think the ID card is another day. The ID card for me. Do you know what I mean? I think we're straying away from the football here. Someone needs to kick it. Right. Okay.